We've been working for 7 minutes, so please cut your presentations a little short so we can catch up. Now I'd like to give the floor down the center Amal, Search Director.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all this morning to the launch of the CLEAR Initiative, the Community-Led Inclusive Recovery Initiative. And before we get started, I just want to mention that there are headphones for all of you here. If you haven't received one, you can pick one up, and I'm not sure which channel. Somebody might be able to tell us. No? No? Okay. And second, I want to mention that if we have an error alert today, we have a room set up downstairs, and we will let you know, and we will go there together. We have a security team that will lead us to the shelter so that we can continue with just a small pause. So on behalf of Alinea International and the Surge Project, the support to Ukraine's governance reforms, it's my pleasure to welcome you all here today to the launch of the CLEAR Initiative. CLEAR is an initiative of the Support to Ukraine's Governance Reforms Project, funded by Global Affairs Canada, and we are thrilled to have our team from the Canadian Embassy today with us, including the Canadian Ambassador to Ukraine. The Search Project started just after Maidan, when we understood that there were a large number of reforms to be undertaken in Ukraine, and we understood that Ukrainians themselves were going into government from the street, from the private sector, to ensure that this revolution would stick. We also understood that it was an incredible undertaking for people that had never been in government before, and that there were a lot of issues that just weren't that well known in Ukraine, and we understood that there could be support to help Ukrainians undertake those reforms. Our approach from the very beginning was to put teams into ministries using Ukrainians themselves, because we understood that the people who know Ukraine best are Ukrainians. And we also understood the incredible ingenuity of Ukrainians from the time watching the Maidan Revolution and wondering and watching all of the incredible innovations that we saw there, from catapults to the various ways you dealt with things like putting helmets on. So we understood that the expertise is here, and that sometimes there's some support, of course, that is needed. There's technical support that we provide, project management support that we provide to those teams that go into government. And over the years, we have undertaken dozens and dozens of reforms, from administrative service reform, which we launched and helped design the process of re-engineering services, which is in fact based on a Canadian approach, but it has been adapted to the Ukrainian context, to other things like supporting the establishment of Ukraine's first export promotion office, to many more socially oriented programs, for example, that helped establish community services so that children can stay at home with their parents rather than live in institutions. So CLEAR is another initiative of the Surge Project, and like all of the other initiatives, it is focused on developing the capacity of those that have to implement projects within their own communities. So we have today with us local government representatives from each of our pilot communities, and our intention is to work together to raise the capacity of your communities to be able to manage your own recovery plan. It's also very important, I'd like to highlight the inclusivity piece of the CLEAR initiative, because while we understand that there's a lot of technical aspects to recovery, we spent quite a bit of time yesterday talking about those in terms of spatial planning and infrastructure and project documents that can sometimes seem overwhelming. The other part is that we want to ensure that this is an inclusive recovery, that this is one that works for everybody in your community. I think we all understand that those that were vulnerable before the war are even more vulnerable now, and we want to ensure that recovery not only builds back better in terms of infrastructure, but builds back better in terms of economy and in terms of social services that we can provide. So today's event is about formalizing our relationships with the communities that are represented here and who you can see on the map above us. But of course, we've been working for several months to get to this point. We've been eagerly waiting for this exact day where we can announce formally who our communities are and start the work with them formally. But I should mention that we have been working with you all for 2 months, 3 months now to select communities. And when we say one of the important aspects of our work being that it is led by you, that it is a locally led recovery, we have injected that principle into every aspect of our work. So we didn't select communities. We didn't say we will work here and here and here. We undertook a process where we first of all wanted to know who wanted assistance, who wanted to work with us. And it is only those communities that we have started this process with. I think you should all be proud to be here today. You have been selected from over 300 communities that we started with, 129 applications, and a fairly rigorous process where you submitted an application, where we looked at that application to see what you were already doing, how the war has affected you. And as a result, we have a set of communities that, first of all, have a great need for assistance. Second, a great willingness to work with us. And third, though, incredible potential. We see some of the activities that you have been doing. We see that you have appointed people that are willing to work with us, that you have people that can absorb the capacity that we hope that we'll be transferring to you. So I'm thrilled to say today that we will start our work. We started it yesterday, identifying priorities. We have a total of 19 communities here today from the north, the east, and the south of the country. And I think that this initiative is something that will not only benefit your own communities, the people that live in it, but I think that we can see already that you might become leaders in recovery and an example for other communities in Ukraine. Thank you.
Я запрошую до слова надзвичайної
I'd like to give the floor to Canadian Ambassador Natalka Timoldina. Hello, I'll try to speak Ukrainian. Forgive me if I get something wrong. Dear community leaders, experts, friends, it's been 2 years since Ukraine has been living through dramatic and very hard times. We see that the Russian aggressor is inflicting financial, economic, and humanitarian damage. But I would like to also highlight your dignity and your courage, your determination to develop and focus on renewal, on rebuilding. Our countries have a long history of cooperation and friendship. Back in 18th century, Canada received first immigrants from Ukraine who were fleeing from the Russian Empire, and today we are continuing our cooperation. From the moment of full-scale invasion, Government of Canada has given around $9 billion in assistance. But the strength and the value of our partnership goes beyond money.
Cities of Kyiv region in May 2022, he said, "I witnessed firsthand the brutality of Russia's illegal war with neighborhoods battered and homes destroyed. But I also witnessed the resilience of Ukrainians as people rebuild, as people stood to defend their cities. We are here today to celebrate new recovery planning support to help you rebuild. And through the community-led inclusive recovery, or CLEAR initiative. This initiative is our response to a request from our partner, the Ministry of Restoration. We are supporting decentralization, inclusivity, and the sustainable community recovery planning process." У пільоті, перепрошую, їхня команда підтримує децентралізацію.
That team supports renewal of communities. In this pilot project, 19 communities will be participating from 7 regions, covering almost 50,000 population. CLEAR experts will help selected communities to plan and implement renewal, rebuilding, which will be led by communities themselves.
Recently repeated and recently emphasized that leadership in the rebuilding of Ukraine lies with communities. І ми згодні. Сильні громади – ключ.
And we agree. Strong communities is the key to success of Ukrainians. Furthermore, Ukrainian communities helped us to build Canada, in fact, so we appreciate that very much. And I think at this point I will wrap up my brief presentation.
І, звичайно, слава Україні!
And of course, glory to Ukraine. I suggest we support Natalka, especially for her good Ukrainian. Thank you. Now I'd like to give the floor to Olena Shulyak, Chief of the Select Committee of the Parliament, one of the leaders of the parliamentary process for rebuilding Ukraine. Hello, dear Ambassador, Your Excellency, colleagues, experts, community leaders, friends, Tanya. It is great to feel the shoulder of friends and realize that we were not being left to our own devices and that we can actually rely on support of all Canadian people. So please accept our thanks for your support throughout 700 days of the Russian aggression. First of all, today Ukraine is faced with a huge number of challenges, and many of those actually exist on the level of communities. So when we talk about rebuilding Ukraine and Euro integration, this is one common path. We're trying to introduce new principles of renewal, rebuilding, and recovery. It is very important to synchronize our work at the level of communities, the parliament, and the government, so that the tasks we set ourselves are implemented quicker and more efficiently. Jointly with the Ministry for Recovery, our international partners, and civil society, local civil government, and communities, we are now elaborating a very important law. It's a bill right now on the foundations of recovery. It is part of Ukraine Facility Plan. And under this plan, as you know, we will be receiving €50 billion until 2027. And of course, we all need to document new principles of recovery and meet these standards. First, build better than it was. And of course, we will be renewing, taking aboard the latest best practice and experience. Everything we rebuild will have to meet the standards of sustainable development so that we do not do any damage to the environment and keep this environment clean and pristine for the future generations. So our task is to follow the national strategy of circular economy and still focusing on the main principles such as energy independence, energy efficiency, energy saving, green transformation principles, and overcoming environmental challenges we're faced with today. When we talk about renewal, of course, our neighbor will never disappear. We will have to plan our activities in such a way where principles of security are always taken into account. So we need to make sure we have inclusiveness and barrier-free access to social services, for example, education, digital barrier-free access to digital assets. In 2022, the Parliament passed legislation, and now we see 14 regions and 126 communities are developing important strategic documents called Program for Strategic Recovery. We are asking all of them to focus on economic side of things, promotion of business through industrial parks, technoparks, new access to raw materials, new privileged conditions for business to make sure that business can thrive at the local community level. Another important aspect is demographic challenges. So we have around 6 million IDPs. Around 20% of the population are outside Ukraine right now. But if we create jobs and ensure security for our people, they will return. And that should, of course, be accompanied by housing, social services, new jobs, and this is exactly what communities are now working on until problems are solved. The third factor involves environmental issues. Over 20% of lands are lost. A lot of land is mined, damaged, polluted. Forests are demolished. So at the level of community, we really need to have a clear plan on how we're going to renew these communities and these ecosystems. Therefore, at the level of strategy and planning, we need to take all of these challenges into account using a wide range of digital tools, because we realize that digital platforms are now present at all processes, and we all need to work on this, and so that we carry on at the same pace. Each community is now faced with these challenges, but they are plucking up courage to, self-organizing and using the offers made by our partners, assistance being provided by our partners, creating new opportunities for funding and new projects, because since Ukraine became the candidate country, we now have new funding opportunities. So let's not waste time on studying documents, but instead jointly work on speedy recovery. So I'd like to thank our partners again and communities who are setting a good example of leadership, and glory to Ukraine. We will win.
Well, is it okay if I mention your birthday, which was 2 days ago? Many happy returns of the day from us. Now our next speaker is Alexandra Azarkin, not just Deputy Minister for renovation, recovery, but also one of the initiators for the CLEAR initiative. Thank you. First of all, I have to apologize on behalf of Vice Prime Minister Alexander Kubrakov, who is in the General Headquarters, our Commander-in-Chief. Defense is of highest priority, but we have to work for our country to develop whatever it takes, whatever it requires. We are trying to maintain our economy working on the infrastructure, and we have very ambitious goals related to the process of Euro integration related to the reforms plan. And when we master such support inside the country, we understand that we can master anything. And that's how our cooperation started with the search for community support. More than 3 years we've had the Ministry for Infrastructure, also for community. So leadership should not be just a declaration. It should be filled with essence of our reality, and the communities need competences, resources to play the leading role. And the initiative we called community support teams, and we tried to organize as many projects and donors, international partners, so that we can jointly work on creation of such opportunities in the field. And we have already garnered some results. More than 360 communities in Ukraine have international partners. A considerable portion of them joined in 2023, and Canada is now actually taking care of 19 communities. And that speaks for the fact that when we cooperate in this format, this is a unique opportunity now that's presented for gaining some expertise. But this is a unique opportunity to work with Canada, one of the G7 countries, one of the biggest players in the international arena. And this is about prioritizing our recovery and renovation and restoration. And we have to engage the resources. And there we have to be as pragmatic as possible, looking for the opportunity for every community that's represented to become competitive, to be able to engage Canadian business for work in Ukraine. I'm sure that all the communities earmarked in the process for CLEAR project will have this opportunity to say, dear business community, we are your community. We are ready with the transparency, accountability, and no red tapes, so that we can cooperate whatever it takes, regardless of all the challenges of present time. So about this project, this support has been around since the last Maidan, and Canada did this through research immediately after the Maidan events in 2013, 2014. And this is also related to candidacy for the EU membership, and Vice Prime Minister Kubrakov has personal experience. We were part of the project of technical assistance, and for some years we could work as advisors, and then the time came when we committed us to civil service, and we understand that you can stay in some municipality 30 kilometers away from the front line, and you encounter such problems. At this point, expertise, additional hands that's landed matter a lot. And we are thankful to the project for this systematic work in two areas. First, the technique that helps earmark the vulnerable communities or communities depressed for such support. And we would like to mention one of the principal partners. When we encounter the issue of practical implementation, we have this situation when there are 5 projects working up and running in one community. In some communities, there are 0 projects being implemented. So it is not about shaking hands and taking pictures. So I'm very proud that we have this approach. This is based on deep analysis. Indeed. Another block of our joint work was related to architecture, planning documents, and this is related to regional policy, budgeting, and planning, and spatial planning in particular. We have covered this distance, and we understand, thanks to our communication with you, that at the local level, we have 22 documents related one way or another with investments and some rules to abide by. At the national level, we have 100 effective strategies adopted by the government, so it is obvious that there are nuances of interoperability and streamlining. So we will try to do everything possible to make this work, on the one hand, easier for you, because it will be unified. On the other hand, you will know that your policy paper is not just paper, but something to drive investments, prioritizing them from the national budget and potential international projects where they use state guarantees, for example, or state securities. This is ambitious, but this is also practically implementable. We work with CLEAR. We could see the quality of the expertise and the readiness of the experts to work with us, being driven by practical results. There is this financial issue. We know that we are going to have support from CLEAR, and you will become more competitive because you will have that assistance in preparation of project documentation, planning. However, finance is also an issue. We work with the liquidation of after effects of armed aggression funds, and thanks to that cooperation, we managed to channel about 10 billion hryvnias for regional and local recovery. About the same amount we also collected through the EIB loans for the this is a sovereign loan, but this is a grant for communities. Some questions arise, 20% of the matching contribution and so forth, but in total we have 21 billion hryvnias last year focused on recovery projects at the local and regional level. This year is going to be much more difficult because there's this defense priority, A, B. We know constraints and aware of the limitations with the partners. Last year the fund was filled with the seized assets. We would like to seize more, but this year we have no such prospects as it seems. So now the forfeited assets being engaged in recovery is still on the agenda, but we have this joint task. When we discussed the liquidation fund last year, that was about 300 projects funded, and we were fighting for the majority of such funds to land at the community level. And we wanted to streamline the situation first, the regional administration, then the national level. Now we have Resolution 118, directive in North American terms. There's this DREAM arrangement. It is a detail, but in the system DREAM we have more than 500 operational communities, and the communities earmarked by CLEARS also will champion that in terms of transparency and accountability and recovery, and use this opportunity to fill out the DREAM system, because we regard it as a portfolio, investment portfolio, and that which will become available and presentable to the world. Our work is about enhancing such opportunities for investment. Your thing is to deliver in quality and style. And first of all, we are people of Ukraine. We are the nation. We have to continue with our country. We have to maintain our economy, and the state should provide for access of the population to basic services. And there we understand the lack of resources, have to think about private investments, private sector, and also proper work with the partners. And for the Ministry of Recovery, it is especially pleasant to mention inclusivity, gender orientation, sustainability. Gender-based analysis plus is a Canadian analytical toolkit available for decision-making, including many factors in the analysis. Seven regions most damaged will be in the focus. These things we all need. We are all learning now to speak the civilized language of the world, and the EU regulation. I have the EIB report that points to the raising quality in the projects supplied. So that speaks for our progress, and this is our responsibility, and this responsibility entails more important commitments, and I'm looking forward to a beautiful discussion today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Deputy Minister. And we will come back to the signing ceremony for memorandum. Now we need to take a family picture. And so I would like to invite to all the mayors and community members to have our family picture together. Thank you very much.
Тоді ні? Ми перенесемо цей банер. Ми його перенесемо. Лишаємо. Заодно буде табличка, заодно таблички, хто що. От ходіть. Таблички можна нормально. Хай буде видно, з ким буде фото. стільці. А де вони ділися? Зараз повернусь стільці. Це нормально. Да? Так. Так. Один сюди. 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 Є. Пані Наталка, дуже дякую.
Дуже дякую.
До зустрічі.
I wonder if we're going to do the memorandums right here.
Ми зараз переходимо до підписання меморандумів.
Now we proceed to sign the memoranda.
Нам треба посадити громаду, мабуть,
Між Олександрою і Танією, правильно? Так. От, Олександр, будь ласка, да.
і ми по тому списку запрошуємо.
Будеш мені подавати?
We're just going to clear a few. Here, you can take your water. And so who's announcing the...
Саша. Так. Запрошуємо Боярську громаду.
So Boyarka, community of Boyarka, town of Boyarka. This is all being done for beautiful pictures.
Будеш подавати, я буду озвучувати. Все по порядку, так?
Береш і просто.
Дякую. Підготуватися Баришівська громада.
Barishevka is next.
Запрошуємо Баришівську громаду.
Town of Barishevka, please. We are going to have high quality pictures, I can assure you. With HD decentralization has its lessons. Better pictures, better decentralization. Better decentralization, better pictures. Великий Димир is next. Великий Димир is invited. Town of Lavacha is next. So you can also come closer if you want. If you want, when the when the
before.
the members of the community are invited to stay behind the signing representative when the documents are signed, but it's up to them actually for the picture, basically. I'm not a prefect, so I'm not supposed to supervise anything, but people, this is just about supervision. This is not, there is no control. Mount, please. Now Levacha is invited, town of Levacha. Town of Shabilka is next.
Так, у кого є електронний документообіг в громаді? Раз, два, три, чотири, п'ять, шість.
Who has the documents, the guidelines for circulation of documents ready? About six. About six, and then it's signing seems to be difficult. Out of practice. Now, town of Shabilka. So Westport, we just it's all electronic now. Bilhorod-Dnistrovsky town of Bilhorod-Dnistrovsky is next, and we can see municipal cooperation at work here.
Perhaps you did not notice, but one of the requirements is to make sure you have the Canadian banner, Canadian flag outside the council, and the ministry will certainly send it out by post next to Ukrainian flag. Білгород-Дністровськ community, please. Близнюківська community, please get ready. When we just started backing up this initiative with the ministry, we were saying that we would need experts. Many people were saying, rather skeptical, but we fully understand how many communities we have in Ukraine. But do we really have a clear understanding of what are the most in need, like the communities that were damaged most? But we can see that this was done well, and we can see that these decisions will be will create an opportunity for a concerted effort to merge our resources and to implement together and get a good result. COVID and the war taught us to work remotely, so we have currently 360 communities have international partner. Well, that's a good result. Also, knowledge of English was never a major problem. We thought it would be an obstacle, but it's fine. Next, Bliznikivska community, please. Balaklia community, please get ready. Okay. As soon as the government has the power of supervision, they would like to have control. Well, let's pretend it's supervision. It's hard to disagree with the ministry representative. Well, we use independent methodology. One is selection of communities, prioritization. Next, Balaklia and community, and Sawa community is next. Sava community now, Alexandrivska community, please prepare. Get ready. Regarding delegated authorities, please bring your own pens. I'm inviting Alexandrivska community, Pershatravnivska community, please get ready. We used to have pens, but then they got decentralized, so we now need some new ones to temporarily centralize the pen fund. The essence of expert assistance. Pershatravnivska community, Sofiivska up next. As you can see, we're just following the slide. Perhaps we will expand the merit, the remit in the future and include more communities. Well, it's nice to have some photos too. Sofiivska community, please prepare Zelonodolska community. Who from the heads of communities submitted their declaration already? And for 2022, how about 2023? Not all yet? Yesterday I uploaded everything. First time. We are inviting Zelenodil community. Apostolska community is next. I'm inviting Apostoliv community. Holminska is up next. Another question. Who has some projects for cogeneration? Not yet. Based on our calculations, around 100 communities this year should have received cogeneration units. Well, we're hoping one of your communities received. They're mostly gas units that are installed to support water supply system during blackouts. But you have diesel generators, I see. You have large ones? Yes. So we have two communities. Thank you. Holminska community. Gorovska community is up next. We're inviting Korovska community. Please, Mehdi, get ready. We're involving communities. Me too. Mena, please. Community. Bashtanka is next.
Bashtanka, Перезабуванська, там Перезабуванка is next. Березневуватська. Березневувата. Березневувата. Town of Березневувата. So now we all deserve a big hand, indeed. And we have more than an hour to go. Madam Deputy Minister is staying with us. Now we would like to make a short introduction to this part, and we will also put some questions. We prepared them in advance, and now, of course, by show of hands, you can indicate your desire to put a question. So, Alexandra, very shortly, I'm thinking about the best way to utilize this hour. I suggest 3 building blocks. There are very important preset questions and answers prepared. The second block is something that you have already acknowledged as your experience and your challenges with the project. We have our methodology, our vision, and so you can also indicate where and how you should do that. Would like to do that. So, and on my own behalf, I would like to say that on the eve, we had 2 meetings with 2 associations. This week, we're having 2 other meetings with the municipal associations of Ukraine. We have 4 in this country, so we are trying to collect all the opinions and the feedback from the stakeholders, and the purpose is to join efforts. So now let's start with the first block before the second block. I will make another introduction about our yesterday meeting and conclusions of that meeting, and then the third block. So let's start with the first block. We will have the preset questions, and then we will also there will be no time for preparation now. So Boyorka, please. Good afternoon, Alexander Zarubin, Mayor of Boyorka. We have a question about recovery, and this is about the bridge which we have in our territory but do not own, and that is maintained, has been and is being now by the state agency, the motorways agency. It was destroyed at the very beginning of the full-scale invasion. The Russians were trying to enter Irpin, took Bucha, and they were trying to proceed, so we had to blow up all the bridges connecting the 2 banks of the Irpin River. So we would like to have some programs to be this is quite nuisance and a lot of things were destroyed, cottages. We've done that using our own funds and efforts, but we cannot do that. This bridge belongs to the region, and the region developed the design. 145 million hryvnias is the cost. So that is of priority. So there is no motorway fund, though. So things with the national roads are now being taken care of with the landing facility and we are trying to do that. But we are trying to do that with the reserve fund because of the lack of other things. We have this just backup fund, and the government has to do that. Now we have this priority for the roads and the bridges, for the military logistics. I think in your case we can provide some justification. And globally speaking, I think this is a great challenge for all of us, because at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, we had by the beginning of it, we had some arrangements. Now the maintenance is a problem. So we have the arrangements for the bridges, for the border crossing points, and this is a great challenge in its own right, and that also includes Mr. Kubrakov for the communities which have their own resources, with their own procedures to do that. And this is a persistent problem, I must admit, at this point. Thank you very much. Korab, please. I have this question. You probably have heard about that already. We started our work with the European Bank, and we have this project for our school. It's 79 million is the cost estimate, with a matching contribution on our part at 20%. So we decided to participate in that project, and we were, of course, doing our calculations and counting on the opportunity to match the cost estimate with our contribution. Now we have these obvious changes pertaining mostly to those communities which have this military PIT, personal income tax situation. We have also the so-called military taxes at 5 million from the police, and the basic subsidy. So 175, 30 million minus 30 million for this year. We have 145. We cannot abandon this project because this is our base school. We are participating in the educational reform. We need the school. On the other hand, this is a big challenge in its own right, and we cannot act as a reliable partner and provide the matching contribution according to our commitments, because we cannot do it using the funds from the protected lines of the budgets, the payroll, the energy supply, and so forth. Can you explain this situation? Unfortunately, you are not unique there, and how this lending facility between Ukraine and EIB operates. This is a facility for Ukraine. For a community, it's a grant, but 20% is indeed a matching contribution. So we have about 5 similar requests. Yes, people were counting on their PIT and now have difficulties with the loan. We were talking to the European Investment Bank and the Ministry of Finance as well, because the Ministry of Finance was trying and to do their best, but now the promises should be kept. And this is of concern for us and also other communities. We understand that the mechanism of refund is not finalized, and we have to interfere there. Thank you very much. Levacha, please. So I presented 2 questions. Please proceed. And I do not want to seem unreasonable and unrealistic, but there are some cases with IDPs coming from the regions which are much damaged, have devastated infrastructure and housing. This is for their application for e-recovery, e-відновлення. We know that the first stage is Commission's valuation, the assigning the category of devastation, damage, and people need to be certified for their purchasing of a new property to replace the lost piece. So I suggested satellite data originally so that we can confirm or verify that the property is lost, is damaged, completely ruined, to get certificates of vouchers to buy something in Kyiv region. This is the first question. So concerning this question, as you probably know, with the e-recovery we have some repair, minor repair, major repair services provided, but there is a challenge. There is this DIA platform with compensation for the works on your private plot with the private cottages in Chernihiv region. It's a big issue, so people will get some funds for repair, some materials, construction materials. So DIA platform can provide for it. This is a big and good news. But the difficulty is compensation for the certificates or vouchers for the destroyed property. Speaking of the territory, say now we will decide whether we should leave. There's the alert. We have to abide by the following rules. We have to observe the situation. If it is ballistic, we'll go to the shelter, and everything is ready there for continuation of our work. Now on the controlled territory, this works. The only limitation is the funds, and we are talking serious money here. So our hope, the biggest hope, is the seized Russian assets. Now we are having this pilot for Melitopol and Zaporizhzhia region. We are collecting applications and we are testing the procedure under the regulation, and it is to be decided by a municipality in exile, as we call it, the relocated, and we have satellite images. We legalize this process. We'll see how it works, but I have this feeling that it is technically okay, and with the Vice Prime Minister we discussed that. So from this point of view we have to take the difficulties into account. But technically speaking, legally speaking, I think everything is going to be okay, and the funding of the instruments is the only challenge. So then, Victoria, the second question. Thank you. It is a tough one. We have no easy ones in this jury. Let's the background. There is a house destroyed in Kyiv region. Kyiv state regional state administration rebuilt that house, and the house is being commissioned, but the person cannot move in because they are supposed to pay this tax. The tax is 800 1,000 hryvnia, yes. And we raised this issue at the Congress of the local authorities, and there are some amendments being drafted, or with the tax code involved, and the law of Ukraine on the compensation. This is basically the background. So we are expecting now a draft law to be adopted to remove this tax, because your example is not a unique one. Again, with the certificates we have challenges. That should be resolved, as we expect.
Just to continue regarding obtaining certificates. In Balaklia and Savinsk community, we are in the potential hostilities area, and naturally people on our territory cannot use certificates, and we're losing human capital. Is it possible to make a marking so that people could purchase housing locally and stay on, because that will be, extra pair of hands. We are short-staffed anyway. It would be good if they could stay on and they cannot return. Gennady wants to join. Gennady Primakov, the mayor from Nensk community. We have Gennady, some foreign experts. I need your assistance regarding expediting the process of sending to Minsk community building that is currently owned by the State Court Administration. The Ministry of Economy told us that they are now gathering a commission involving many ministries, and after that they will pass on to the government. We have 3 donors who are ready to renovate this building, because we are planning to convert it into a school, a shelter, and a refectory for primary school. And we already have donors who could start the work. Ministry of Economy has been sitting on the documentation for 2 months, and still there is no movement. Could you please give us the number of the document, and I will look into this. Through the experts, please. Thank you very much, Gennady. The topic you raised is indeed relevant for other communities as well. Hello, I am from Belgorod-Dnestrovsk. I'm the mayor. We also have a building which is of historic value. About 10 years ago, it was handed over to the Ministry of Justice. And back then, it was the Yanukovych government, and perhaps there was some agreements regarding renovations of the building. So anyway, to cut a long story short, they never renovated it. It's dilapidating. It's falling apart, basically. We cannot use funds of the community because it doesn't belong to us. It's not our property. But on the other hand, we have sent dozens of letters to the ministry to allow us to put this building on our books. In the very last letter, they said, please explain how you're going to use the building. Well, we are going to renovate it, but as far as how we're going to use it, the plenary session of the local deputies will decide. We just don't know yet. that decision has not been made yet. And according to the legislation, since the building is located on our territory, it is our asset and we should be owners of this. So if you could do something to cut through red tape, because we're trying to save these buildings. They are falling apart because if this continues, it'll be just too late. Well, mostly, indeed, this is red tape. I agree. So, unfortunately, I can't promise anything, but I will try to talk to my colleagues from the relevant ministry. If you could focus on communities that used to be rayon centers, we have a lot of government assets, but you can't use them for kindergartens or social facilities. Unless you streamline the procedure of putting those buildings on our books, they will just fall apart. No matter how hard it is, we will take it. We'll take those buildings, and we are only allowed to use them as social facilities, such as a library or a school or something like that. Now, if possible, to expand the range of applications where we could use these buildings. Occasionally, the condition is they can't sell it. And we don't need it really. It's in the downtown area. It's old. It's dilapidating. No one takes care of it. No one's using it. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. If procedure is streamlined, we could put it on our books and renovate it, and then find a good use for it. Well, yesterday we talked about this, and this is relevant not just to Bilhorod-Dnestrovsky, but other communities too. Foreign partners are helping us, and oftentimes they are handing over buses, for example, but we can't use those because, according to the law of Ukraine on humanitarian assistance, the vehicles cannot be used to earn profit. So, for example, right now we received a rubbish collection car. It's a big truck. It was handed over to us. We receive it, but it'll just sit there until changes to the legislation are introduced. The same is true for buses that we received. If we are to use it, we have to maintain it, and we are allowed to transport all passengers, all types of passengers, not just pensioners who are allowed to have free rides. So if you could help us to make some progress here. And it's not about making money, really. We just want to provide public transportation for our citizens. Even if it breaks even, that's fine. We don't need profit. We just need to pay salary to the driver, buy fuel, and maintain the bus in a decent condition. We can't do that right now. We have 3 buses. One is paid for through the city budget, but we can't do that for 3 buses. And we're short of funds. The same is true for diesel generators and charging stations for electric cars and electric vehicles. So we need a comprehensive decision, not just to organize the process correctly, but introduce legislation changes. Yes, we're studying this right now. Ministry is currently in touch with the Ministry of Transport, and we currently look at it from the standpoint that we will try to streamline the categories of transport and let local self-government to make decisions on this, because oftentimes the community has to search for someone who brought the vehicles in, were when it was brought in, were customs duties paid or not. So it's a lengthy process. We need to really cut through the red tape and make it as fast as possible. We are right now searching for a good decision. Definitely legislation will have to be changed. So I hope that Olena Shulyak will help us. Communities have expressed their desire to change this situation. Okay, Shabo Hromada community, please. Our community has this challenging task. We need to update the map of our community, including the borders. And in the past, they were in free access, but right now we can't get a more detailed plan with community, the neighboring community, but even with the government. In other words, we need a detailed map with a large scale so that we can go over the border and rule out disputes with the neighboring community and government property, government-owned land. We're working with the Ministry of Regions, and as my colleagues explained to me, the problem is that we don't have the legal grounds to give you those maps. But when Natalia Kozlovska changes the roster, it will be easier, and you can get all the figures, all the details. So right now, I cannot promise anything, because the last time I heard from the lawyers, they said no, it's impossible. Well, we have a number of cases in court, disputing the border with our neighboring community, so it's not good. Just to continue on the same topic, Hennady, please. Or do you have something else? I'd like to talk about assistance to the military. The lawmaker made it mandatory to transfer assistance through a certain banking route. It makes no sense. For example, we decided to buy some spare parts, and through volunteers to stockpile them. The drone that our military needs cost 22,000. However, if we build it ourselves locally without paying salary, it will cost 9,000 just to assemble with the parts. So the question arises, why should we pay 22,000 if we can make it assembled only for 9,000? And there are many examples like that. Volunteer hubs have certain rebates. And if we could use this route more often, more actively, we would save some funds in the national budget. And instead of buying them abroad, we could build them locally. I think it's a great initiative, and we seek support to facilitate this process for us. What about Bill 9596? Does that solve your problem? Please take a look at it. It's the latest legislative initiative that we supported. It streamlines the process of funding the military, and it's a new procedure. Please look into this. We are supporting this initiative, and hopefully it will serve your purpose. Thank you. There are two more questions. And then if you could describe the situation in writing, because we have some other partner in the defense ministry with whom we could perhaps explore other ways, other avenues. I am from Barashev community. My question is as follows. In our community, we have 3 designs for bomb shelters. They were ready in March last year, but today they are no longer valid because we're supposed to use new building code requirements. And those 3, now those 3 projects are going to be, they were based on old building code. If you could allow us to build 3 shelters based on the old code. Well, unfortunately, I can't help you on this one. I mean, the new building code was recently introduced. It's in force. We have to follow it. All right. Well, we'll... Petro, please. Hello, Sophie of community. I have a question regarding IDPs on our territory. Our community has received around 1,000 IDPs, mostly from Bakhmut, the people who lost housing. We have a hall of residence that we have basically provided to these people. They're using it right now. But we know that there are funds available to improve conditions. Could you please tell us what the opportunities are, and can we tap into those funds in order to overhaul those halls of residence? Recently we had a meeting with the local administration, and they said at the level of Cabinet of Ministers there are programs that co-fund similar work. Is that possible? Is that true? Well, let me tell you what I know. We have a fund for liquidating the consequences of the armed aggression. That's the first source of funding that has been used last year quite actively. Next, regarding European Investment Bank, and we touched upon this earlier, they're providing grants and 20% co-funding. There are also pilot projects for comprehensive recovery, but those are mostly large-scale projects because at the community level they are kind of smaller scale. But if you would like to recover several facilities, several buildings at the same time, you might qualify. So you might consider that, the latter, as well as the first 2 options as well. Okay, so when you design your projects and seek international assistance, you should perhaps take this into account. Now let's talk about the second block of issues. Let's discuss that. Yesterday we had a preparatory meeting and we introduced to all communities results of monitoring and polling. what we see for each community and each bushel. We focused on two issues. First, what services and what assistance can be given from the search project and the ministry. And second, what are the priorities for the communities? We suggested that we could pay attention and help each community to update their strategies. In fact, for many communities, they will have to start from scratch instead of updating them. And the second thing we could help with is go through priorities and submit their proposals. Like, it should be a portfolio of projects. They may be at various stages of preparation. That is not a problem. And then that will be supported by the ministry as well as donors. So really, it's down to how you pick your priorities, how you get them correctly. So that's why the second half of our discussion is dedicated to reducing priorities, because the smallest number of communities are two in Odesa region.
Less than 12 priorities as a result of our communication with the communities. We cut it down to 7, and for some we had 22, and also confined to 7 subsequently. The third point is the point that there is an uninterrupted communication with the Ministry for Restoration, and we have started this dialogue, or polylogue, if you would, before the government, the central agencies, to have this direct channel for communication and advocacy for the project implementation team. And the third point is advisory support. Alexander, you started discussing that, and I'm referring to it now. For the international project, the experts and consultants to support communities directly. And we identified 8 areas, out of which, in addition to economy, energy, infrastructure, education, defense, health and social policy, 8 areas, top priorities for us to keep the finger on the pulse and have uninterrupted consultations with the experts. That's the state of play, and what is interesting is that the proposal for planning and the inclusion of the communities for the architectural planning exercise is supported by them, and each group identified that this strategy and implementation plan, recovery plan, we and see that this is supported with strategic and spatial. Spatial planning is very important. Everything having to do with the economy, infrastructure, and sustainment, let's say. With the priorities identified, mayors correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my impression that everything having to do with retaining people and retaining the human capital, preventing any brain drain. In addition to economics, to infrastructure, energy, and miscellaneous. So 12 back. We have 12 again. In fact, we actually looked into this combination and how it would match. But there is one priority that is called strategic spatial planning. This consists of 22 items, not 12 even, because we can see that the strategic plan is about everything. But there is this earmark group of priorities, apart from strategic planning, to start design and pitching of the designs without waiting for any kind of development with a strategic plan, because this is going to be fed into it anyway. That's our state of play. Thank you very much. Great. Well, I was concerned at first. On the third minute, you started discussing strategic documents, but our focus is back. We have to discuss our strategic documents as the set of guidelines for prioritization of investments. And we perhaps liberally, but we dream about the opportunities. There's Article 6 in Ukraine facility, 12% of, for recovery should reach regional and local level, local and regional. We are trying to offer for this article or item or line the solutions so that we can get funding from the EU. There is this challenge of doing it right, doing it correctly, because the priority of the Ministry of Finance come from them, but it is recommended by the EU Commission in a certain way. Your part is to embed those priorities at the level of your strategic policy paper. Because now we are doing recovery, and there will be the regional development strategy updated. So in plain language, it's just if you need some funding, having to do with recovery like Kakhovka Dam, even if it is that big, but it is a key document that calls for the necessity to be inconsistent with these documents. So would you like to make some comments as to the arrangement? We also put that question about how to best organize our work. Yesterday we discussed that. Again, mayors, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I used some matrices of several groups, and I looked into the deficiency in human capital or in the cadre. So this work should be arranged in such a way that we not just delay implementation. There is a where we have deficiency of experts, professionals, and we have to provide more people than communities have now. This is one of the focal points, and we have to solve this issue. I'm addressing Alexandra, and yesterday it was confirmed there was a request for a considerable number of people to implement those priorities. So we had to downsize because we cannot create an alternative mayor's office or town council, and it wouldn't be right. But adding one or two experts, professional focus on a certain priority, this can be this is doable. So mayors, heads of administrations. We have some communities with military administrations installed, so we have people with different status here. That's why I'm saying this. So, would you like to focus attention on anything discussed so far? I'm addressing everyone, save for Mr. Zarubin. Yesterday, he was introduced by Tatiana. Well, we have to still another block to discuss, but let me summarize. Yesterday we discussed it at length, but we decided that policy papers for every community were priority number one. Priority number one at that. Now everything having to do with urban development and land title documentation, this is the gist for everyone here. All the 19 communities arrived at that conclusion. Some people have water treatment, some roads, some bridges, and so forth, but this is development of our communities. So the most important points, we have to proceed and we have to do it together, and there is this challenge of smaller territories and places where we had no institutional support with the territorial arrangements, no experts who needed something to be reinforced, and the roadmap for our specialists who are not that knowledgeable but ready to learn, eager to learn, to get the roadmap according to which they can proceed, identify the priorities, and decide how they should continue with the documents in order to include that in the strategy. We are ready to learn. We do not need any alternative mayor's office. We have to learn in the field, gain the hands-off experience. For that, we need some institutional support in the field. Thank you very much. I think this is something we should discuss. Thank you very much. Well, if this is all, let's proceed to discuss the third block. There are 2 points not to be forgotten. Some communities have ready designs for the priorities together with the cost estimate that fall under the priorities list for said communities. So this is about promotion, and this is about promoting communities, and this should be merged into one portfolio. And with the priorities thus identified, which communities really discuss as top priorities, there are no designs of any kind of readiness, even ideas or concepts ready to be pitched. And this is a great signal. This should be supported by continuous designing and project management in the most sensitive areas for the communities in question. And when you discuss fantasizing, dreaming about some funds being available, but we understand the priorities, we have identified them, but we have no designs or even concept papers for the designs to be developed. And we understand at the governmental level what that can entail. This is my point. Yesterday I was trying to moderate, so I wanted to make a special point of it. Today we've seen that, we've done that, and we understand that they should be continued as a priority for our work. Let's continue and proceed with to the third block. Alexandra. Well, and the third block. I can see. No. Gennady is very watchful, and he looks like he's ready to say something. There's no input from Gennady, though. Well. Nothing on the third block, so let's conclude. It is important to understand and appreciate a smaller ministry, but with our scope responsibility, we have 420 people. We are a smaller kind of ministry in terms of resources available, but nevertheless, last year we had this mission to arrange everything a little bit for the work pertaining to investments, priorities, and uniform approaches. Now, discussing decentralization as a framework, we actually updated it and now have a roadmap till 2027. This is important because on the one hand, everyone appreciates it as one of the most successful ones, but the war, unfortunately, has its bad impacts, and we have to revisit. And for many years, people wouldn't touch the most challenging issues like supervision with a barge pool and delegated powers, delegating a legal entity status. These issues, or PIT, personal income tax, and this is challenging, and all the stakeholders understand how difficult it is. And we're trying to arrive at some high-quality data to take proper decisions with PID, for example, and which has been reviewed for the calculation of the model. What happens if we switch completely to the place of residence, actual residence or registered residence, and delegated powers, delegation in terms of cost effectiveness. In many issues, there are no uniform approaches, no uniform framework to use. So these issues, on the one hand, for more than 10 years being discussed. On the other hand, we approach the point when we cannot disregard them anymore. And we committed ourselves to implementation of this roadmap, and we initiated this as part of the plan to become eligible for the 50 billion euros. And this is all about our Euro integration prospect. So there is a lot at stake, and we have to continue and take decisions not necessarily popular, but the principal point is that decisions should be justified. And justification comes with the figures specific for municipal statistic, because we have DREAM, other digital solutions, and we'll discuss geoinformation system for monitoring the e-відновлення based on the registers for damaged and destroyed property. When this is married with municipal practicality, you will see how this is to be integrated into the strategy. This is a long-term development, and we cannot say that the war is about to stop, about to be won. We hope so, but we have to learn to live at war. This is our new normalcy, unfortunately, with all the impact, and we have to be watchful, to look out. This is our severe reality, but we have no choice, and we have to fight for our real normalcy. And this is about decentralization reform. Now the regional policy is organically developed, connected with that, with the state strategy for regional development, and we discussed a number of priorities, and we were laughing about the 8 challenges, and there were some stakeholders which wanted 12 instead of 8, and we tried to refocus, but the most important thing is the action plan. By the beginning of February, we expect the task force to be operational for the activities at the strategic national level, and we got some preliminary okay from the partners for developments in the regional and local level. We would like to have more engagement for academics, for activists, to make it our national mission as a nation. This is the sense and meaning of end state and destination. So there are some pragmatic things, and I've been referring to the State Regional Development Fund that should be different, not just grants, but also participatory budgeting, and also borrowings, privilege borrowings. And Poland is a champion in utilization of such funds. With the Ministry for Development and Funds, we are working very fruitfully. Our colleagues regularly call in Poland so that they can learn from the experience. So this is another big block. And also we are discussing the digital solutions. They are just tools, as you know. And our national experience tells us that the digital solutions can entail real, true reforms. And the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is for us to be in the same system, transparency and accountability. Thank you very much. Well, if we carry it into execution, we invite communities for consultation and participation, and this is more for you. This is your opportunity to have your say and voice your specific needs, and to being taken into account. But we need feedback from the communities and development of certain documents, and the ministry proceeding, choosing its direction. And this is uninterrupted communication from the mayors and your teams representing deputies and secretaries, and practical implementation. practical implementation, we checked every community and how they were represented, profiling for the communities, and now you are not yet partners, you weren't, and that was monitoring. At this stage, now we want for all the toolkit with the minister, the whatever it is, dream on monitoring for regional development, to do best profile of and be represented as the best communities.
And the communities that we can say are our partners and how it is being implemented. Plus, of course, the feedback. And the third point is how do you upload your priorities, strategies, and projects in your accounts so that we can see everything and we can select the appropriate resources and experts for you. This is how we see the phase 3 of our cooperation. So clear is there to support you. Unless you have any other questions, I'd like to give the floor to Tanya for closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Sasha. Sasha, yeah. I feel out of place here, not being a Sasha. But I think that you have very well summarized all of the many good points that have come up today, but also yesterday when we were speaking about priorities. So I will not do that again because Sasha needs coffee. I would just mention one thing that I didn't hear as much, and it's something that we talked about a lot yesterday, and that was the need for a barrier-free society, considering the huge number of people that we will have with disabilities, the need for gender inclusivity. I'm looking at Oksana now, who raised that yesterday, and the very good discussions we had about that. We recognize, of course, there's just, as has been said, there's just so many priorities, but this is an opportunity for us to build back better in all ways, not just infrastructure, but economically, socially, and to ensure that everyone in our communities is able to benefit from the recovery. I would also just like to say a couple of thank yous. I know that we have a lot of international partners in this room. Thank you for joining us today from other international technical assistance projects. And I want to mention that you are here, and it's maybe an opportunity for our communities to also speak with them. This kind of an event, we have invited all other international partners because we see this as a unique time to come together with communities and hear from you directly about what your needs are, but also what your successes are and what your thoughts are in terms of things that need to happen at the national level. And that's partially why we will have the coffee that Sasha is waiting for so much. But I would also like to thank Deputy Minister Azarkina, who has sat in the hot seat, as we say in English, for a little over an hour. And I really appreciate the time that you took with us. I'm sure the communities do as well. And while you don't have the magic wand to solve everything, unfortunately, I think it is so important to raise these issues to you, and we know that you will do your best to address whatever you can at your level. So thank you for your time today. And finally, I'd like to thank all of the communities. Thank you, first of all, for trusting us and being part of this process, for deciding to work with us. Thank you for your willingness to make changes. Thank you for your openness to look at all aspects of the issues. Thank you for bringing up things like barrier-free and gender inclusivity. Thank you for your progressiveness. I have to say, it's nothing short of inspiring, because we hear about all of the obstacles that you have, but still you sit here, and still you are working, and still you are smiling. So thank you for all of your hard work. We know that it's not easy. And finally, I just want to say that I think Sasha mentioned this a second ago, but this is our first event where we brought you together, and I'm thrilled that it has achieved exactly what we wanted. Yes, we formalized our memorandums. It took us a while today, but I think this has been a great start to achieving a team mentality We'll come back together at different times throughout this process, and it's clear to me that you have so much to learn from each other. We have so much to learn from you, and so this will be a priority for us to come back together from time to time as we work on our strategies and our spatial planning and all of the other good things that we have talked about. So thank you very much, everyone. I'd like to give you all a round of applause for all of your hard work over the past 2 days. And let's go forward. Slava Ukraini. And the coffee is in the next room, Sasha.
Так, так. Там ще в програмі написано нетворінг, неформальне спілкування.